The Walking Purchase of 1737, Penn's attempt of compromise that led to a long-term conflict. This purchase, known as the Walking Purchase, occurred on September 19, 1737, and shaped the land of Pennsylvania that we know today. It has been known as the disgrace of the century because of all the land that was taken from the Indians who lived in Pennsylvania. The Delaware Indians had owned the land of Pennsylvania, and the Quakers had shown an interest in owning some of that land. The leader of the Quakers was William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania. His 3 sons took over when he died in 1718. The Delaware Indians had a few main chiefs, including Manawahickon, Lapawinza, Tishkohin, and Nuddamus. Before this purchase happened, the Delaware Indians sold William Penn a part of the Pennsylvania land in 1682. At this point in time, Penn and the Delaware Indians had had a great relationship with one another. They made an incomplete draft of a document of how much land the Quakers would get. They said that the Quakers could have as much land as a man could walk in a day and a half. This purchase never went through and ended up standing still until 1737. Thomas Penn, William Penn's son, found the document that his father had made with the Delaware Indians. To get the land of Pennsylvania, he said that it was an Indian treaty from the 1680s. On August 25, 1737, the Indian chiefs Tishkohin and Lapawinza signed the incomplete document from 1682, and the Walking Purchase began.
The Walking Purchase involved a number of characters, but one of whom was James Logan, who orchestrated this taking of land from Native Americans. They had agreed in a treaty, Delaware leaders such as Shikellamy and Lapawinza, that the settlers could have the land running up along the Delaware River to the north of Philadelphia for the amount of land could equal the distance a man could go in a day. And from a native perspective, if you think about it, how far does a person go in a day? You're maybe stopping to gather food along the way, and water, and resting. And what James Logan did was actually hire runners to essentially run a relay and steal as much land as they could. And there's a great portrait in the Philadelphia Museum of Art of these Native Americans looking desperately sad, and some say it's because of this land swindle.
James Logan, the Penn's land office agent, also showed a fake map of the land to get the Delawares to agree. The Delawares fell for the trick, and they allowed the Quakers to have as much land as a man could walk in a day and a half. This compromise of the purchase would soon be broken. On the morning of September 19, 1737, the walk began. This sign in Bucks County marks the spot of the start of the Walking Purchase. This is the chestnut tree where the runners started at sunrise on the start of the Walking Purchase. And this monument is in memory of the Lenape Indians whose land was taken during the Walking Purchase. The Quakers brought their 3 fastest runners, Edward Marshall, James Yeats, and Solomon Jennings. They had no intention in actually walking the land. They were going to run the land. This was the main conflict of the Walking Purchase.
The Walking Purchase became a conflict first of all, on many different levels and in many, many different ways. So you can look at it on a national level. After the Walking Purchase, the Native Americans certainly did not place their trust in the white settlers anymore. So there was always this fragment of distrust. And that appeared or manifested itself through many different ways. One being the French and Indian War. That takes place, of course, in 1756. And at that time, the Native Americans, including some of the Delaware Indians or Lenape who were in this area and had to move west because of the Walking Purchase, sided with the French.
Lenape chief Lapawinza said to express his frustration, the white runners should have walked along by the River Delaware or the next Indian path to it, should have walked for a few miles and then have sat down and smoked a pipe. and now and then have shot a squirrel, and not have kept up the run, all day. The Quakers also had a path cleared before the walk, for a less difficult journey. They started the walk at sunrise in Bucks County with the 3 runners and a few Delaware Indians to supervise the walk. As soon as the walking purchase began, the Quakers were walking, but before long, it was a full-out sprint. They ran all day and only took breaks when necessary throughout the run. The Delawares would call out to them to stop running and walk.
This sign in Ottsville, Bucks County, shows the spot where Solomon Jennings, one of the runners in the walking purchase, falls out of the race about 18 miles from the start of the purchase.
Thomas Furness, an eyewitness from the walk, said, "It was said we traveled 12 hours the first day, and it being in the latter end of September, or beginning of October, to complete the time we were obliged to walk in the twilight."
This monument near Springtown in Bucks County marks the spot where the 3 runners in the walking purchase took a lunch break on their first day of the walk.
By the end of the day-and-a-half walk, only 1 runner remained. Yeats and Jennings could not finish the run, but Marshall ran around 65 miles in 18 hours and ended up in Jim Thorpe. The land that the Quakers acquired stretched from the Delaware to the Susquehanna. Delaware Chief Nutmess once said, "Of this practice must hold, then why are we no more brothers and friends, but much more like open enemies?" The end of the walking purchase left many bad feelings for the Delawares. They expressed that their custom had been abused. After saying this, Penn asked the Iroquois to send them out. The Delawares allied themselves with the French during the upcoming French and Indian War. The Indians were forced from their old settlements to new land in the middle of Pennsylvania. The walking purchase affected the way of life for the Delawares. By 1750, almost all of the Delaware Indians had been removed from the land of Pennsylvania. The Indians did not approve of their actions, and at a conference in Easton in 1756, leader Tishkahan expressed his feelings. "The very ground under me was my land and inheritance, and is taken from me by fraud."
Well, a number of things happened to the Delaware Indians, or also known as the Lenape Indians in this area. And I would think most likely the most major occurrence that happened was that they were forced off of their native lands. We know that the walking purchase was, after it was over in 1737, they had lost so much of their land, much more of land than they had actually expected. And this, of course, was because of a fraudulent, that word is not too strong to use, a fraudulent scheme by Thomas Penn and his brother. They were very much land hungry. They did not have a lot of money at the time, and they needed to sell much of the land in this area to the white settlers. There was, at this time, immigration was very, very strong, and a lot of settlers coming over here wanted land. They needed land.
Almost 1 million acres had been stolen from the Indians by this time. The Quakers and the Delawares had lost their good relationship because of the purchase, and the Indians considered them intruders on their land. This was because the purpose of the walking purchase was planned to lead to ill feelings between the two groups. The walking purchase of 1737 changed the way of life for both the Quakers and Delaware Indians from the start of the compromise all the way to the end of the conflict. After the walking purchase, land that belonged to the Indians was still taken from them. This purchase was the first of many conflicts. Delaware Indians were forced out of their land in Pennsylvania and took a hike over the span of 130 years to where their home is today, in Indian Territory, known as Oklahoma. This purchase shaped the land of Pennsylvania and changed the relationships between the Quakers and Indians.